fracture and an ankle, fracture and ankle somewhere. She's getting it surgically repaired tomorrow morning at Kaiser Zion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We're encouraged to interact with customers, develop a personal relationship with them. Yeah, so you're supposed to. Yeah.
Cool.
They have secret shoppers. I've been secret shop 3 times in 3 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's hardcore.
Yeah. 100% each time, baby.
You should shut the casino down they just opened.
Really? Oh, I heard that disaster of that.
I wasn't here, I was
There
out
was
of
a
town.
parking
I was
lot
so
only.
glad I was out of town because that's right next to my house.
Yeah, the parking lot's not holding enough people, so there's like a dirt road and all this stuff, and I guess there were cars just lined up along the highway.
Yeah, there were
Just
people
chaos.
parked on the highway
Chaos.
in the bike lane and parked their car and just got out and walked in.
Just not prepared.
I don't know, was it a free buffet? Is that what it
They
was?
don't have a buffet. It's just opening week. They open on Monday.
Really?
And they don't have elevator for customers yet, only employees. So there's this whole confusion, and people are going up and down the road, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's kind of, kind of funny.
Yeah, so
Anyhow.
it's getting one a little.
So, short arm cast parameters on the distal border. I'm going to run this one up just a couple, maybe 4 finger breaths above the antecubital space, and I'm going to actually put some molds in this cast right around the medial and lateral epicondyles of the elbow. The point of this cast is to prevent supination and pronation, but to allow them to flex and extend. She had to arm wrestle her for a second. Normally, if I was doing a long arm cast, which is the next cast that you're going to see, I would cut this out. But in a Meunster, I leave that intact.
What's it called, Meunster?
I don't know. I can't remember why they call this one a Meunster cast. Sarmiento came up with the cast. Remember why they call it a Meunster?
It's not spelled Meunster like
Meunster.
Eddie Meunster.
Yeah.
It's like
Meunster cheese.
Meunster. Something German.
Yeah.
You're going to find out here real soon. This is going to treat any radius, isolated ulnar fracture you can treat with this. Any radial diaphyseal fracture, which is an isolated radius. Some distal radius fractures will be treated in this.
Just want them at 90 degrees while you.
Yes, 90 degrees. There's arguments saying that they could be at 45 degrees. So a couple of things that I didn't point out as I was doing it, but I padded a little bit more right around the medial and lateral epicondyles. It's these 2 bones right here. Okay? Right here around the elbow. I'm going to actually place a mold in the cast of these 2 fingers. And what that's going to do is that's going to lock her in so that she cannot supinate and pronate. But she'll be able to do this. You stay tuned. So when would I use this for a distal radius fracture versus a long arm cast, which is probably the more acceptable way of treating a distal radius fracture? What if they broke 2 wrists? Because when we fall like this, right? Put our hands out to catch us. What if you break both wrists when you do that? You think that doesn't happen? Happens all the time. So the worst one, we'll get a long arm cast. The not so bad one might get a Meunster cast. So that would be one time where you would initially treat a distal radius fracture in a Meunster. Normally, we transition out of a long arm cast and go into a Meunster. That's why it says secondary up there. That's kind of like secondary treatment. Notice I have 2 splints out. One I'm going to make a volar. And the other one, just going to leave it the way that it is. See how much room I give for the thumb? And I'm going to have her hold up. She's going to hold it up there. What if I'm not exactly 90 degrees? Not that big of a deal on this cast. Notice I'm making that elbow kind of thick, spending a little bit more time there. Because my money roll will not go down that far. Does that make sense?
That was, could be longer.
Here's what you were talking about, how they meet. Does that answer your question? Again, spending a little bit more time around the elbow.
Is that your manual?
No. I have to wait for this one to completely dry before I add a money roll. Relax. So I'm actually feeling for her condyle. It's kind of thick. You got a lot of plaster, a lot of padding in there. Feeling right where those condyles are. I want to be right above them. Some people will use a palm for that mold. If you use a palm, then your cutouts have to be a lot higher. I'll explain to you in a second why that exists. I will allow you guys to make a long arm cast, put these molds in it, and then turn your long arm into a Meunster, and that way you can get 2 graded at one time. What? Yeah, well, if your long arm casts are poor grade, then probably your Meunster is going to have a poor grade. But if you're running, if you're trying to play catch up, it's a good way of going. And I do the same thing, we do this for one of the leg casts as well. Pretty smooth, huh?
When did they first start using plaster casts?
Ooh, way back, 1800s. Couldn't tell you exact date.
Fiberglass?
Fiberglass was in the 70s. Fiberglass went through many different transitions You used to have to dry it using heat lamps. None of that stuff worked out. They finally got it perfected in the early, mid-70s, I think it was.
Pinching causes dent, but not pinching her arm per se so much.
No, I'm trying to pinch it. Not, yeah, I'm trying to leave a definite, don't,
It defines.
she wants to rest it up there, I don't want her to rest up there, I don't want a dent of anything else in that cast. So, like I was saying, some people will make this cast and use a palm right here. And that's fine too, I have no problem with that. Your biggest problem, or the reason why I don't do that, it's not gonna work, is when you cut this cast out, you have to cut it out on the top side of your flare. Does that make sense? So if this is your indent that you just made, you can't cut the cast out in the middle of the indent. It has to be as it flares away from the skin. Otherwise, if it's in the middle of the indent, it's constantly sawing at the patient. So it has to be going way out, then you make your cut of the cast so that it's not sawing into the patient. And I'll show you. Good saw. Pull back all my stockinette.
Why do you have to wait till it dries before adding
Because I have to cut it out. Right? Because I can't cut this out whenever it's soft. I have to wait for it to dry. So then I get to peel that back, make it look nice then. So. So if I had cut this out, like I would do for a long arm cast, I'd have a big hole right here. You don't want that. She should be able to extend to about a 45-degree angle. About 45 degrees. She should be able to flex, pick her nose. Supinate and pronate. That's why these dents exist. She really doesn't get a whole lot of supination and pronation. If you allow them to extend all the way out, they can supinate and pronate. That's why you can't allow them to fully extend. Got it?
You pitched the condyles, right?
Right above them. Right above them. So if I had put my palms up here and indented using my palms to make my mold, then my cutout would be way up here on the top side of that mold. Then you would basically, you can dial in how much extension by how far you cut back here. Like if if that wasn't 45 degrees, if it was 70 degrees, I would just trim it a little deeper in the back, and I'd be able to get 45.